Hey, how's it going?
On a virgin.
Good.
Thanks for taking the time to talk about your company.
Yeah.
So I recently came across your work on the TCN Coalition website, and I was really interested in it. So do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about your company, Nodle, and what exactly your team is looking to achieve?
Great. So Nodle's a company that was designed, we built it maybe 3 years ago with the intent to connect and secure the next trillion things. So we saw that the costs of computing, the costs of connectivity were coming down to a point where they would converge and something really interesting and new would emerge. So we built Nodle with the intention to use the billions of smartphones that are in everybody's pockets to connect small Internet of Things devices. So these can be sensors or asset trackers or things that are in packaging, like a connected water bottle. We use Bluetooth to connect these things that just could never be connected with cellular or existing infrastructure. So we believe that solving the world's biggest problems requires connectivity at the edge. So that's what we've done. We've built a global network with over 5 million smartphones each day that help contribute and expand our network. And we partner with businesses, Industry 4.0, big companies to help them locate and connect their assets.
So he's been working on a free contact tracing app to stop the spread of COVID-19. Could you tell us a little about how that app works?
Sure. So we realized that a lot of the IP that we built around connecting IoT devices and securing them could be applied to people and helping track the spread of the virus. And we saw a lot of solutions were being deployed, but none of them yet had built a solution that was protecting privacy. And so we decided to use our knowledge in Bluetooth to build one that was really privacy first. And the way it works is that each phone has a Bluetooth ID, and you exchange Bluetooth IDs when you come into contact with somebody. And if one of those IDs are infected, then you get a notification. So we've been able to use our knowledge in encryption and security to help encrypt these identities so that your data isn't leaked. So the government, your employer, essentially nobody, even us, aren't able to tie back the information about you.
So how did the idea for this app originate? I know your company had previously launched FireChat, right? A Bluetooth-based communication app.
Yep.
Is any of that research applicable to your current app?
Yeah. So with FireChat, we had this cool feature called users are nearby. So whenever you would walk into a crowd of people, you'd get a notification on your phone that says, hey, FireChat users are nearby. And we said, wow, that can be a really powerful tool for contact tracing, for seeing which type of people were nearby. And it was only until we'd thought really hard about, okay, Nodle's going to connect 1 trillion things to the internet. How do we make sure that this is secure and that this is going to be a world that we want to live in? So we built this whole encryption security stack that allows an IoT device to have its own secure identity. So we've been able to shrink down basically the servers that banks use to secure your data now fits on a little chip like this. This is the same thing that just a few years ago was a server rack. It's called a hardware security module. And so we took our knowledge in this and applied that for contact tracing for people. And so a lot of the inspiration was from that, just building these giant mesh networks with smartphones and helping secure these IoT devices with Nodle.
Since you mentioned a little bit about privacy protection, do you want to go into more detail and explain what exactly, like what data is the app collecting from the users and how you're protecting privacy?
Sure. So primarily the app collects Bluetooth data. It also collects location, but that never leaves your phone. And most importantly, this data is never tied to your identity. So what happens is your phone is collecting all of the randomized identities that you see of other Coalition app users. And what happens is if one of these identities is marked as flagged, you receive a push or you pull some data from a server and you try to match those codes. So someone says, hey, I'm infected. They submit their identity to the cloud. and then your phone receives that infected identity and then checks on the phone if it's come into contact with one of those IDs. And that means that the contact tracing is not happening at the server. It's actually happening right on your phone. So there's no way that data can leak. No data leaves your phone until you declare that, hey, I might be infected. So we believe that's one of the cool benefits of our app.
So what are the future plans for your company? Where is it headed next after this app?
Sure. So we're working right now with big businesses and industry to see how can we deploy this on factory floors. So talking to companies like Tesla or Amazon, those are just some examples, but to help them get back to work while protecting the privacy of their workers, because something like this can save them millions of dollars just per day in efficiencies and revenues lost. We're also working with health providers. So we have a partnership with the city of Berkeley. So we're in very early discussions with hospitals and testing. So how can we integrate this into a test so that we can kind of automate this whole process and make sure that our system never receives any of your health data. We can just use encryption to protect all of that.
Do you have any pieces of advice for people that are probably considering going into entrepreneurship, something they should keep in mind while pursuing such a career?
I think definitely just go for it. Entrepreneurship is a crazy path. There's no, a paycheck is not guaranteed at the end of every month. But if you want to change the world, that's what you have to do. I have a lot of friends that, had a crazy idea and they tried it and it worked. So I would say if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, just go for it, try it, especially when you're young, because when you're older and you have, a car and loans and things like that, it becomes a lot harder to do. So I'd say just go for it.
Do you think there are any misconceptions when it comes to entrepreneurship? Because I feel like a lot of people want to go into the field, but they don't consider a lot of aspects.
I think one of the big misconceptions is that you'll make a lot of money. So I have a lot of people messaging me like, oh, will you invest in my startup? And no, early stage companies are not raking in the dough. You actually have to think about money very carefully and budget everything out. So you're not going to make tons of money at the beginning, but you just might change the world. So, we're seeing that stuff that we've built has been adopted or copied by some of the biggest companies in the world. And so now we're working on, okay, how can we help these companies to enable the full vision of what we were thinking in the first place? So it's a constant battle, and you have to be ready to just pivot immediately.
What are some of the biggest accomplishments that your company has had over the years so far?
So with FireChat, and my co-founder can speak more to that, but we saw that this app became a symbol of democracy. So people were at protests all around the world and they started using this app because if the internet didn't work, you could use this app to communicate. So that was pretty cool. In terms of what we're doing at Nodle, we've built the largest wireless network in the world by number of base stations. So I think that's pretty cool. And what's really exciting is this is all part of a bigger picture of incentivized wireless networks. So in the mesh networking community, so mesh is this idea that my phone talks to my computer, talks to my screen, and none of them have to actually go up to the internet to communicate. They can just communicate peer-to-peer. So in the world of mesh networking, this idea of incentivized wireless is a big deal, because if you can pay someone to install an app to build a nodal network, or if you can pay someone to put a box on top of your house and deploy 5G, you've just totally shifted the economics of the internet. So we think that we're on the beginning of a new way to fund the expansion of the internet as we know it.
Do you have any last words, something you want people to know about your great work and research?
I'd say we're really just at the beginning. What's possible with encryption and security is really interesting. So I know the news loves to portray encryption as this terrible thing, but it's really powerful. I mean, these are the tools that you're going to use to protect your privacy, protect your security, but also enable some really incredible use cases. There's a whole movement happening right now of, it's called the Web3 movement. And I actually have a Web3 hat. So it's this idea that sounds kind of crazy. It says, trust less, more truth. And it's kind of hard to, you say trust less, I shouldn't be trusting things more. But it's this idea that I shouldn't have to trust a system when I interact with it. I should be able to use math to prove that the system is okay. So say if I'm going to pay something, I should be able to prove that I'm actually getting the goods, or that I'm okay I'm good for the money, essentially. And this will shift radically in how we use energy, how we communicate, how we travel, even how we own things. And we're really just beginning to see this whole trust, the shift of trust move. So in terms of advice I have for people, I'd say just, learn the convergence of technologies. So a lot of people are like, oh wow, autonomous vehicles are going to be the coolest thing ever, or fusion, man. But the most interesting things happen at the convergence. So what happens when when autonomous technology converges with, say, the rapidly reducing cost of flying cars, or flying vehicles, or autonomous technology converges with connectivity. So life is filled with these exponential curves, and the most interesting things happen is when they cross, because that's when something totally new is possible. And a lot of people don't see these things. Very few people see them. So if you can look around you and say, wow, solar power is getting exponentially cheaper each year, and battery technology is getting better at a linear fashion, or the cost of 1 gigabyte of data is decreasing exponentially, and the demand for data increases exponentially. What happens at the convergence of these things? And that's where the future lies.
That's pretty much it, Garrett. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk. And I'm really excited to see how effective your app is in reducing the spread of the virus.
Thank you. Yeah. Send us the video when it's done. We'd love to see it.
Got it. Thank you so much. All right, Garrett.
Cool.
Bye.
Well, yeah, it was nice talking. Let me know if you need anything else, all right?
For sure. All right, bye.
All right. Bye-bye.